Hello, and welcome to Living with Your Dog. I'm Charlotte Peltz, a certified animal behavior consultant. I would like you to be able to contact me with any questions you may have regarding particularly behavior issues, but I can address other things as well. One of my favorites is nutrition. So we're here to help you, and Nate will tell you how to get your questions to us.
To get your questions to us, just email livingwithyourdog@gmail.com. That's livingwithyourdog@gmail.com. And also, you can find Living with Your Dog on Facebook. Living with your dog, living with your dog, living with your dog with Charlotte.
Hi, welcome to Living with Your Dog. We had a question recently about dilated cardiomyopathy and what it means. There have been a lot of dogs that have suffered from it, and there hasn't been anything really conclusive about what's causing it to dogs that are not breed specifically associated with it. But what it means is that the heart loses the ability to pump blood because its main pumping chamber is enlarged and weakened. So that's what dilated cardiomyopathy is, for those of you that are interested. It is still an issue, and it is not resolved from the standpoint of what causes it. There was a very bad presentation, I think, by the FDA of grain-free foods that were supposed to be associated with it, and that has not proved to be the case. So we don't really have answers yet. It's a problem, but it's not something that we really have to worry a great deal about. But of course, regular listeners know where I stand with any other processed feed that's out there, and whether it's the cause of dilated cardiomyopathy or not. I think that you should be doing species specific forms of nutrition.
Okay, so that's a really good description, nice and simple, of dilated cardiomyopathy is the heart loses the ability to pump blood. Now, what would be the signs? How would I know that my dog has that?
Well, I think that whenever you have heart issues, there are a couple of things that are pretty common. I don't know what the specifics are for dilated cardiomyopathy, but when the heart isn't working very well, oftentimes there's edema, there's fluid collection, there's a breathing problem. The dogs are panting. They cannot deal with what had been a routine form of exercise. The heart isn't able to deal with that. So we're talking in terms of whenever your dog appears to have particularly a sudden change of behavior or indication of pain, it's time for the vet, because sudden changes indicate there's something not right. And when we're talking in terms of dilated cardiomyopathy, I don't think it's something that just happens overnight, but whenever you're talking in terms of observing changes, old age is not a disease, for example. So we can't say, okay, the dog's old, I guess he's just got some heart problems, let's forget about it. That's not what happens. That's not, yes, we slow down, and it's reasonable to expect arthritic changes as we progress. I think that it's a good idea to begin glucosamine chondroitin supplements with dogs by the time they're 2 years of age, particularly if they're really active dogs, not necessarily as active as used for hunting, where they're working 10 hours a day. But if they're just romping and playing hard and they've got rough times with their buddy friends and so on and so forth, I think it's a good idea, because that helps to keep the lubrication going in the joints. And there's no real downside to it. So why not? Let's go with it. And of course, I'm a huge promoter and fan of omega-3s, because it has immune system benefits, it has anti-inflammatory benefits. There's quite a long list of things that are associated with omega-3 supplementation that are well within good reason to be giving it to yourself and to your dogs. So it's whenever you're talking in terms of a change in behavior, especially if it's sudden, be sure that you get in for a vet visit. Now, if you know that your dog was just playing roughly and ran into a post and they're limping, okay, let's wait a couple of days. I mean, we're not being dumb here. But if they suddenly squeak when you pick them up, or they growl when you try to pick them up, or they don't want you petting them, those are indications that there's something going on that causes pain, and we need to address that. The other thing is when your dog should have annual physical examinations as well as your cats, by the way. And it's a wellness exam. It isn't going in because some vet is still touting annual vaccinations, which you shouldn't be going to that vet if that's the case. But it's checking to see what the status quo is and comparing it. So annual blood work tells us what's basic. And if there's a change, it's like, whoops, what's going on here? Let's address this. So, and when you get to senior dogs, and generally we're talking in terms of particularly large giant breeds at 7 years of age, they should be going in twice a year. And the reason for doing that is the vet can catch things that you may not have observed. You know your dog better than the vet does, but they have ways of checking for signs physically that can bring some attention to them, and especially when they're comparing the blood work panels for today as compared to yesterday, or 6 months ago. So it's important to take preventive measures, and Dr. Jean Dodds is the only vet that I know of that promotes prevention. It's not a part of veterinary school. And she's a big one for preventing health issues from getting out of control. And that's what I think is the best promoter for annual and semi-annual visits with the veterinarian, is to catch something before it becomes an issue that's really difficult. It's really a problem.
Right.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. So why dogs with behavior problems deserve compassion? This was reviewed by Chloe Williams, and it's from Dr. Zazie Todd's. Okay. If you have a dog for any length of time, you learn there are times when things don't go to plan. If your dog has a behavior issue, sometimes you have to go the extra mile to help your pet. But because dog training is not regulated, finding out what will help is not necessarily easy. Caring for a dog with a behavior issue such as fear or aggression can involve some combination of training, management, and when recommended by your vet, medication. If your dog lunges, barks, or growls at other people when they're on leash, it may be necessary to plan dog walks in the early morning or late at night to stick to quiet times of the day. It may mean being on alert for people coming in the opposite direction, ready to cross the road, or to put a parked car between you and them, or to shout and ask them for an off-leash dog to be put on leash when they were supposed to be on leash anyway. All this at the same time is fitting in training sessions to desensitize and counter condition your dog. If your dog doesn't like visitors to the house, management can mean shutting your dog away in a crate or another room, having a system of pet barriers, or maybe considering which people you're actually going to let in your house anyway. And every member of the household needs to follow the same rules. And that's oftentimes a very difficult situation. It's like, oh, I don't mind, and it's okay. And that's just totally unfair to the dog. Consistency is a huge element in having the dogs feel comfortable with what's being required of them. And they don't like things to change very much. So the more consistent you are, the easier it is for them to go along with the program.
And it's really hard when you have multiple people in the family, because there's always
Absolutely.
that one cool uncle or older brother who wants to be the nice guy to the dog.
Yeah. Right. And it's the dog that pays the price.
Yeah.
So caregiver burden, if it sounds like a burden, she says, it's because it can be. However much you love your pet, if you have to structure your life around them, always be on the lookout for potential triggers and plan outings ahead of time so that your pet does not become upset, and it can be hard work. There's a name for this, and it's caregiver burden. I'm incredibly impressed, she says, at the length some people will go to help their pets. I'm also saddened that sometimes people will reach out to someone for help only to get advice that makes no sense or makes things worse. Because dog training is not regulated, anyone can call themselves a dog trainer, and they may recommend tools that risk harm to animal welfare or to human-animal bond, such as shock and prong collars. Aversive methods from leash corrections to shock collars can affect your dog in a number of ways, including an increased risk of fear and aggression, a worse relationship with you, and a more pessimistic dog, according to scientific research, Verde Castro 2020 and 2019, Blackwell 2008. On top of that, some studies suggest that positive reinforcement is actually more effective. And that's been, I think, proved a number of times.
Yeah.
That it holds up over the long haul and it gets you there, not necessarily faster in that you can shock a dog and get them to stop what they're doing, but you haven't addressed the reason they're doing it. So you think you've cured the problem, but it may surface again and again, or in other ways that you weren't prepared for. So in the long haul, it's a time saver and a money saver in that you pay up front for good training compared to vet bills down the road.
Right.
Training and management take time and efforts to get results, and medication, if recommended by the vet, also needs time to work. And that's an important point. For example, Prozac can take a couple of weeks before a change in the dog's behavior is noticed, and then juggling the dosage becomes an issue too. So it's not surprising, she says, that sometimes people decide to go for what they mistakenly consider an easy fix. Trainers are under no obligation to disclose the risks of the methods they use, or indeed to disclose what methods they are. And this is why the celebrated dog trainer Gene Donaldson argues for transparency in dog training. It's also why I recommend never do board and train, meaning you put your dog in somebody else's hands and they're going to fix the dog for you. You want to see what's happening. You want to learn how to deal with it. And also often, punitive methods are used. I'm not saying they all are, but punitive methods are used by board and train. And the dog is fine when you get them back, but you didn't learn anything about how the dog works. And pretty soon the dog is back to that undesirable behavior because you haven't learned how to work with your dog in the proper fashion.
Hmm.
Okay, so there's in a review of the literature on shock collars, Masson et al. Wrote that some owners are attracted by the idea that e-collars may be cheaper than engaging a long and expensive program with behaviorists, trainers, and or veterinary behavioral specialists. However, the price can be higher than expected since the welfare of dogs and the relationship with the owner can be compromised. Most owners themselves express a preference for not using an e-collar, considering other tools as being more humane. And when we're talking e-collar, we're talking electronic collar, and sometimes we talk to the e-collar as the Elizabethan collar, the great big cone thing that stood around when they're trying to keep them from getting at an incision. But this is an e-collar, this is an electronic collar, meaning shock collar. For canine behavior issues, it's important to do something that gets to the root of the problem and addresses any fear or anxiety the dog may have, something that aversive methods don't do. And because it's hard to find a good dog trainer, sometimes people end up trying several trainers before they actually get help. It's no wonder that this can feel very difficult. On top of dealing with a dog whose behavior is hard to manage or potentially dangerous, there's also the added burden of navigating the mix of conflicting advice, as well as the need to have a thick skin against comments from friends and family who have read outdated advice and want to share it. At these times, it helps to have compassion for both yourself and your dog. Beth Sautines, certified trainer, says of reactive dogs, understanding that your dog is having trouble coping is the first step towards compassion for your dog and for yourself too. While it might seem that reactive dogs are being purposefully disobedient, nothing could be further from the truth. These outbursts are not any more fun for your dog than they are for you. Your dog is so stressed, either from fear or frustration, they resort to barking, lunging, and the like. End of quote. It can really help to understand that your dog is simply having a hard time. There are many potential causes of behavior problems, including genetics, lack of socialization, I have one of those, and bad experiences, which she's also had, by the way. So it's also important not to beat yourself up about it, but do take great care in choosing where to get advice and how to take time to learn about your dog's needs. My book, she says, WAG, The Science of Making Your Dog Happy, is a good place to start. That's Dr. Zazie Todd. You're not alone and help is out there. If your dog has behavior issues, look for a trainer or behaviorist who will only use reward-based methods to train your dog. For any sudden behavior change, you should see your vet in case there is a medical issue. Now, she lists references here, but you notice she says a behaviorist. And I really like to be certain that you understand that the term behaviorist is really applied to only two people, people like Dr. Patricia McConnell, who has her degree from a particular behaviorist education standpoint, and a veterinary behaviorist that takes 4 years of training after vet school. I'm a behavior consultant. I'm a trainer that has gone to extra lengths to learn about how to deal with behavior issues rather than just teaching obedience like we used to do in the days of old. I changed that to companion dog classes, behavior classes for the companion family dog. But being a behavior consultant is a much more appropriate term to use as compared to, in general, behaviorist. I think it's unfair to those people that have gone the far extra mile to get that title, and it
Now,
shouldn't be
I
thrown
just want to be
around.
clear. It's the term behaviorist is an inappropriate term to use for you, right?
For me, people are using it, but I don't consider it appropriate unless you have that credential that states you've gone that extra mile in
Right.
education, either a PhD or a veterinary behaviorist who's gone, again, basically has a PhD in veterinary behavior besides his veterinary education
Oh, that kind of
requirement.
answers my next question. The when they go to vet school for 4 years, and then they go to veterinary behavior school, so they learn about the behaviors of all animals or specific animals, or
I would imagine when they do that, it's probably just dogs. And that's an interesting question because unlike medical doctors who go to school and study humans, veterinarians are expected to learn about guinea pigs and chickens and goats and turkeys and
right.
dogs and cats. And that's a big plate. Really, that's asking a lot of them. So
That's why I was wondering if the behavior classes are the same, or learning about
there's
behaviors.
there's almost nothing taught to veterinarians in vet school about behavior and nutrition. Neither one of those things.
Right.
There just isn't the time or the space to be able to do that and complete the veterinary degree requirements. So your local veterinarian is not the best source of information for behavior problems, but they are the only source when it comes to medication. And what we're talking in terms of then is any medication from your veterinarian to help adjust maybe something that's not quite working correctly in the brain, uh, also requires ongoing behavior planning and proper management of a dog with behavior issues. So yes, some of them are going to require veterinary medical assistance, but your vet is not the best choice when it comes to the modification of behavior itself, nor
Okay.
from the standpoint of what's the best thing to feed your dog.
And so, as a dog owner, if I do need somebody to help with analyzing the behavior of my dog for any number of reasons, are you saying that it would be easier to find a behavior consultant than it would to find a behaviorist?
Yes, and ultimately likely to be less expensive because I think that there's a limit of like, I don't know, 75 veterinary behaviors in the United States.
Right.
And I'm sure that some of them will do consults by way of remote, Zoom or telephone or whatever, but that's not the best way to go. And when you're talking in terms of getting a certified behavior consultant, the International Association of Animal Behavior Consultants is a go-to site. It's not the only one. There's another group, I can't remember the exact name, professional dog trainers, but there aren't a lot of options. But be careful because, as it mentions, anybody can hang their shingle out and say they're a dog trainer. There
Can
are no
anybody hang
controls.
that sign out and say I'm a behavior consultant?
Sure, but that can at least be checked.
Okay. And what was that site again? It's the Certified Animal Behavior
The International Association of Animal
International
Behavior Consultants, and that's where I get my certification. And they have a
Association.
division for cats, horses, parrots, and I think a rescue group. So it's a very it's a very good organization. It's been around for years. I think that I was at the they've got thousands of members now. I think my number was 67. So this goes back quite a
Wow.
number of years that that I got my certification, and it's a very long list. It requires reading, it requires case histories, it requires ongoing courses of education, and I'm taking the retired status, which I can do, I'm entitled to do, because first of all, I'm no longer actively training, but I continue to have access to those trainers if I do need to work with somebody. But I no longer have the financial obligation of very expensive continuing education programs
Hmm.
that I can no longer deal with. I just can't do it. So
So is that a place where we can send our listeners to look for behavior consultants? Is
sure.
the
Yeah,
International
International
Association?
Association of Animal Behavior Consultants. Absolutely.
Okay.
Mhm.
All right, cool. And the other thing I wanted to mention too, from this article about behavior and uh, issues and compassion for our dogs, one of the things that Zazie Todd pointed out, which I think is really important to mention, is the conflicting advice that you can get from
Right.
family members, friends, veterinarians, even.
Oh
I mean,
yeah. Mhm.
all sorts of things. I mean, just talking to different people, there's all sorts of things that people believe, and it's because they heard it on what they thought was, a viable source.
Well, the other thing is you'll have somebody say, I've got 20 years experience. Well, maybe it's 1 year experience 20 times.
Or right, 20 years of doing something wrong.
Yeah, right. So that they
Oh
haven't
boy.
been open to change. And that's not an unusual human trait. We're resistant to change. I've always done it this way and it worked. But when I have never been a person to be a fan. I'm far from being a fan of Cesar Millan, and I never really watched the program, but I did see some YouTubes.
Yeah.
And when I've had people mention, but he's internationally acclaimed, and I said, well, next time you see one of his stints, turn off the sound and watch the dog. The dog will tell you what the dogs take. And sometimes when the dog is absolutely flat out on its back and he's saying that the dog is now calm and relaxed, the dog is so stressed it has given up. It's
Right.
learned helplessness. That's called learned helplessness. But it's very interesting to eliminate sound from him and observe the dogs. I remember one YouTube I saw. It was a yellow lab that had been a resource guarder, particularly his food bowl. Didn't have to have anything in it. Could be the water dish. You weren't going to get it. And he kept taunting the dog and trying to take it away. And finally, the dog grabbed him. Oh, look what he did to me. I didn't see that coming. You didn't see that coming? The dog
Absolutely.
was doing everything it could to say, stop already. Please stop. That's not the way to teach the dog to give up a treasured item. And that's not the way to deal with a resource guarder. But for him to say he was shocked and his shirt was torn, excuse me, it's like that was
Yeah,
like
you
going
just sat
full
there and
time towards that guy and he didn't see it.
yeah, you just sat there and pissed the dog off for 5 minutes. Of course the dog's gonna
Yeah,
freak
yeah, the
out.
dog had done everything it could to get him to stop taunting him. And again, that procedure was not the way to teach a dog to give up the food bowl. That's not
Yeah,
how you do it.
I can only imagine what happened to that dog and its dog owner when that dude left, and then they probably have more problems now. Now
Oh,
the
I'm
owner
sure.
could be
I'm
bitten
sure.
because the
Yeah.
owner's probably going to try to repeat this quote unquote lesson.
Yes. And, it'll say, don't try this at home. People are going to try it at home. You
Yeah.
know that. That's raising the red
Uh,
flag in front of the bull's face. Of course, they're
it's,
going to try it at home.
it's like
And
don't
what
look
we
down.
want to do is we want to teach procedures you should try at home. That's the way it's supposed to work, folks. The dog lives with you, not with me.
So one of the things you had just mentioned a couple minutes ago, which I'd like to touch on when it comes to trying to find a behavior consultant or a trainer or even a vet, I think, is the importance of being open to change.
there's that. Another thing that's important is observe a trainer working with other people and dogs. And if you're uncomfortable with what you're seeing, go someplace else.
Hmm. So like I would be vetting the trainer then
Right. So
and going
you
there
don't,
and watching
yeah,
without my dog.
about your dog. Yeah.
Okay.
You don't want to just say, okay, I was told this is a good trainer. I'm going to go along with my dog with my problem. No, you have to observe this person in action with other dogs and people. And if you're not comfortable with what you're observing, try again.
All right. Living with your dog, living with your dog, living with your dog with Charlotte.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay. In keeping with that, Zazie Todd also says 8 reasons to train your dogs just for fun. So, why training your dog, even when you don't need to teach a specific behavior, is a good idea. We all know there are things you ought to teach your dog, like socialization for puppies or to come when called. These are things that make a big difference in your dog's life and your life with your dog. But dog training isn't just about these behaviors. Apart from the essentials, which really make up quite a small, albeit important list, there's a whole host of things you can teach your dog just for fun. And here are 8 reasons why you should do just that. One, it's fun. We might as well start with the obvious reason. Training for fun is fun for both you and your dog. For many people, training those standard obedience behaviors is fun too, but the advantage of teaching tricks is that it doesn't really matter if it takes time or even how it turns out. So there's no pressure on you or the dog, and you can both just enjoy the process. I'd like to suggest that you treat all these behaviors as tricks and not take it too seriously. You can treat it, sit as a trick, lie down as a trick. You're going to have more fun dealing with it. That's my take on it. Anyhow, two, she says, it helps you build your relationship with your dog. Taking part in joint activities that you both enjoy is one way to improve your relationship with your dog. Dogs like to work for rewards, so they will enjoy learning tricks with you. And we also know that when dogs are trained with positive reinforcement, they are more likely to have a strong attachment to their person. So it's a great way to build your bond with your dog. 3, it's good for your dog's welfare. In case you didn't know, training with positive reinforcement is one of the ways people can give their dog positive experiences. Having positive experiences is essential for good welfare. Of course, there are many ways to give your dog positive experiences, but regular training with positive reinforcement is a nice and easy way to do so. 4, it tires your dog out. If you've got one of those dogs who just go, 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 training is one way to tire them out. Although physical exercise is great, mental exercise is also tiring. Training can be especially beneficial for those drivey dogs like Border Collies, Australian Shepherds, and German Shepherds. But frankly, it's good for all dogs. And that's because it's 5, it's cognitive enrichment. For anybody that has ever studied a foreign language, you know by the end of the several sessions of trying to learn that, you're tired. And all you did was sit there and try and work on learning a foreign language. So yes, mentally tired is important. So 5, it's cognitive enriching. In other words, it gives their brain something to do. That's partly why it can be tiring. And it's beneficial for dogs of all ages, including senior dogs. Sometimes people don't do enough to provide enrichment for their senior dog. After all, the dog is typically well behaved and quiet by that age. Teaching them some tricks is a great way to keep their brain active. 6, it's food enrichment too. Assuming you're using food as a reward, which let's face it, it's the best way to train most behaviors, dogs are sensitive to the type of food reward we use. They will run faster for better quality treats and have opinions about variety. So good food works well to motivate your dog. Whether it's little bits of peanut butter squares, tuna fudge, cooked chicken, or some other great dog training treat, it's best to train with food that your dog doesn't get otherwise. No kibble, in other words, except in rare cases where your dog is on a very strict prescription diet. And even then, you can typically use canned food or treats from that prescription range. The fact that you're using tasty morsels means your dog is getting food enrichment on top of the cognitive enrichment. And back to that prescription diet, keep in mind that there's a class action suit about prescription diets. They are not prescription. They are not meant to cure. And they're generally very expensive for garbage. Okay, 7, your dog will get better at learning. The more you teach your dog, the more they will learn how to learn. And that's an important point.
Yeah.
For example, at 1 year of age, dogs who went to puppy class are considered more trainable than those who didn't, according to their guardians. Plus, you'll be able to show off to family and friends about how smart your dog is. 8, you get to practice your skills too. These training sessions aren't just for the dog, they will help you to work on your training skills. You'll improve your timing and delivering rewards quickly and clicking if you're using a clicker. You'll improve your technique in luring and shaping as you get your dog to do the behaviors you want. You'll get better at setting criteria and learning how to start with something very easy that your dog can already do and gradually progress at just the right pace so they stay interested and willing to participate. In turn, all of this practice will help whenever you do training in the future. So training your dog, even when you don't have to, can improve your life and your dog's life. If you want to read more on the science of dog training and learn about how to care for your dog, check out my award-winning book, WAG, The Science of Making Your Dog Happy. If you want an online course on dog training, she says I recommend Jean Donaldson's Dog Training 101 by the Great Courses. It's often on sale and makes it a real bargain. If you're looking for tricks and ideas, I love Sassafras Lowry's book, Tricks in the City for Daring Dogs, and the humans that love them, Trick Dog Training Book, Exercise Your Dog. You can also try an online trick class. My fantastic friend has an online tricks class and also offers private sessions. The Dog Abides has online trick classes and trick dog title evaluation. If you want to work on something like toothbrushing, grooming, or recall, check out the online courses at Doggy Geeks University. P.S. Join over 4,500 animal lovers and sign up for my free newsletter. As a bonus, you'll get my free guide, 7 Secrets to a Happy Dog. And that's Dr. Zazie Todd. She's the author of the award-winning book, The WAG, The Science of Making Your Dog Happy, and the forthcoming Purr, The Science of Making Your Cat Happy. She's the yeah, that's coming out. She is the creator of the popular blog, Companion Animal Psychology. She writes the Positive Post premium newsletter and also has a column as Psychology Today. She lives in Maple Ridge, British Columbia, with her husband, 1 dog, and 2 cats.
And that's a great blog. I've gone to it regularly. Like when I'm looking up stuff that I want to learn more about that you have mentioned, it's a great resource. Companion Animal Psychology.
She's great. Yeah, I love getting her stuff. Okay, and speaking of people who have dogs and cats, can cats eat dog food? And this is written by Megan Keller, a doctor of veterinary medicine. She says this is a question, a common one to come up in the course of a veterinary visit. The short answer is yes, a cat can eat a small amount of the food of dog and not have any toxicity or lasting effects. However, the longer answer dives into the species-specific differences between our feline and canine friends. While a nibble of stolen dog food will not harm cats, it will definitely not help them achieve their best possible health. Here's what you need to know about cat nutrition and why you should not feed dog food to cats in the long term. No, cats cannot be maintained on a dog food diet. If a cat is only fed dog food for a long period of time, then detrimental, if not deadly, consequences can occur. This is because dog food and cat food formulas have different nutritional components in order to meet the different nutritional needs of the 2 species. While both dogs and cats share our hearts and homes over time, nature has molded them into very different animals with very different nutritional needs. Cats are obligate carnivores, which means they require a diet of meat-based proteins and animal fats in order for all the body systems to function properly. Now, notice it's meat-based proteins. We've talked about this before, folks. When you're looking at the label on a package of pet food, cat or dog, and you see the percentage of protein, they're not telling you how much of that is meat-based. They don't want to tell you that because they can get cheaper versions of protein from other sources than meat. So this is very specific. Cats require meat-based protein in greater percentage than dogs. Dogs, on the other hand, are actually omnivores. Now, there are a lot of people that object to that and feel they're still carnivores. Their mouth structure, their intestinal structure is that of a carnivore, but they have adjusted over the years as scavengers to be able to eat other things and survive, not necessarily thrive, but survive. So a omnivore has a more flexible diet and can easily eat both meat and vegetables. A dog food diet does not meet the specific nutritional needs that cats um, require. And there are a few key differences in the formulation of dog food and cat food. Cats perceive taste differently than dogs. Cats, unlike dogs, lack of the ability to sense sweetness, and even the number of taste receptors are different between the two species. Cats have a measly 470 taste buds, while dogs have 1,700.
Wow.
And for reference, humans have over 9,000. Cat foods are specifically engineered to be highly palatable in order to entice our occasionally picky and taste bud lacking felines to eat. It's generally uncommon for cats to even want to eat dog food, as they intend to find it unappetizing. Dogs, however, love the delicious high protein content in cat food. And incidentally, that's another reason why dogs are inclined to go for cat poopsicles, because the excrement contains a lot of shed off protein, and that's what they're interested in. Okay, protein. As strict carnivores by nature, cats need food that has a much higher protein content than dog food does. Occasional brands and types of dog food do feature higher protein levels, but as a whole, not even these specialized dog foods reach the high level of protein needed to keep cats healthy. Most dog foods have an as-fed protein account of 18 to 26%. For cats, however, I usually recommend, she says, to aim for at least an as-fed protein percentage of 30 to 34%, with an optional supplement of canned cat food with 40 to 50% protein. That's a big difference. Taurine. Cats and humans are among a few of the mammals that don't have the ability to make taurine, so they must get this essential element from their diet. Cats that lack taurine in their diet can have weakened hearts, dilated cardiomyopathy, there we go, loss of vision, and digestion problems. And I think that this surfaced some years ago when it was discovered that cats had been doing just fine. They were healthy for a long time, and then suddenly were getting very sick. And it was discovered that they were able to get along for a while without the taurine, but then they really went downhill. So it's an important part, and it comes from meat. Arachidonic Arachidonic acid is a fatty acid that cannot be created by cats either. It must be ingested. Cats suffering from low arachidonic acid levels have nonspecific signs of illness, such as abnormal liver kidney values, occasionally increased skin issues. And dogs can create this fatty acid all by themselves, and thus dog food is seldom supplemented with it. Vitamin A is another dietary element that cats cannot synthesize on their own and must have supplemented in their diet. Whole dog foods do often contain vitamin A supplements. These foods will never contain high enough amounts for optimal cat nutrition. Cats suffering from lack of vitamin A will have poor quality coats, muscle weakness and deterioration, possible night blindness. Niacin, it's important that a cat's diet also contain niacin, as cats cannot make their own. Animal tissue is the most common source of niacin in pet food, but plants do have some low levels of niacin. But a food containing a lower content of animal tissue and higher contents of plant tissue, such as grains, will not give cats the proper levels of niacin that they need. There's an organization called the American Association of Feed Control Officials, AAFCO, that closely monitors and regulates the pet food industry. Well, we have a number of questions about that. And this is a vet supporting that, but here we go. The pet foods that follow AAFCO's nationally agreed upon nutritional levels will have a label stating, formulated to meet the AAFCO cat food nutrient profile for, and a list of life stage. Life stages fall into three main groups in the pet food industry: growth, maintenance, all life stages. Not only do cats have specific overall protein, vitamin, and nutritional needs, but these vary throughout their life stages. Fast-growing kittens need more nutrients and energy sources, while older, healthy cats need more protein to help maintain their muscles as they age. Dog food, with its lower percentages of proteins and other nutrients, cannot possibly sustain a cat long-term at any one of these life stages. The best way to ensure cats to share our lives for a very long time is to ensure they get a healthy, high-quality diet that's geared to meet feline needs. While dog food is non-toxic and will not cause harm if a few kibbles are eaten, it's not designed to meet a cat's nutritional needs. And the only way that your cat is going to be properly fed is with no dry food, period. End of discussions. Absolutely zero. None. Don't go there.
Well,
Okay.
that was a really long answer to one that we can make really short. First, let me ask you this. Should a cat be eating dry dog food? No.
Yeah, that's
Should a
quite. Yeah, but
should a
that's an easy
dog
answer. That's
should
an
a
easy
dog be
answer.
eating dry dog food?
No.
No.
Right,
Let
right.
me ask you this though. When it comes to cats being malnourished, I would assume that it would be harder to see the signs in a cat than in a dog.
Cats are notorious for hiding signs of illness.
Right.
That's how they have evolved. It's that's protection, and it makes it very difficult for cat owners to get proper help and assistance when the cats are so secretive about their feelings, which is why, again, it's really important that kitties get more annual and semi-annual regular visits to the vet's office. And cat owners are inclined not to do that. Oh, she hates to go in the car. She hates her carrier. Well, work on it, folks. Work on it. It's not rocket science to get the cat to be comfortable in a cat carrier. You don't have to stuff them in and shut the door and have them totally traumatized by the time they get to the vet's office. So it's something to start off right away with your kitties. And that means you get them used to the crate and you take them over to the vet's office without the need to have any kind of examination. They get to be in there and they get some treats. And now, of course, we can't go in with them, but you can ask that they take the kitty in, give her a few treats, and bring her back out again so that she has positive associations. And keep in mind that offices don't smell like real people places.
Mhm.
And I was just talking with my vet friend Kitty, and she was talking in terms of problems that she's had over the years. She has a Staffordshire Bull Terrier, and she's got two Siamese cats. And at one point, one of the cats had to go in for medical treatment at the veterinary office. And when the cat arrived home, the other cat, the home cat, the cat that was already home, attacked her. The reason, of course, is she didn't smell the same. She smelled like a veterinary
Oh.
office, and she was a stranger. She was a foreigner. She didn't belong there. And cats are very territorial, so
Yeah.
it's something that it's an important part of cat kingdom that we have to understand that. And what should she have done? Well, she probably should have brought the cat in a cat carrier and left her in a cat carrier for a while and put in some of her original bedding so that she began to smell like herself and let them go, oh yeah, I know who you are. It's okay, come on out.
Wow, that's a good point. I wouldn't even think of that myself. I mean, yeah, you don't even think about the smell and how the other cats are going to associate to it. I mean,
Oh
it's
yeah,
just not something that I would think many people think of. And it's
probably
those
not.
little things, those teeny little things that make a world of difference.
Absolutely, absolutely. And and cats and dogs almost inevitably always have a not very pleasant association with the veterinarian's office because everything is different there, which is why it's so important to try and reduce, if not completely eliminate, the strain of doing that. So from the time you have your puppies and kittens, you should be getting them accustomed to having palpitations and feeling them and the pressure here and lifting them up and putting them on a cold stainless steel countertop, whatever, so that these things are not shocking to them when they get into that atmosphere. It's not the end of the world, but it's much easier for them to have had some experience so that when the vet does it, it's not so bad.
Yeah, just that little bit of trauma could affect them for the rest of their lives.
Sure, 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 absolutely.
And you said we do need to take our cats to the vets. Okay, so you said dogs regularly should go to the vet once a year unless they are older dogs, and it's twice a year.
Right.
How about for cats?
I think it should be the same thing.
Same thing for cats. Once a
I think
year,
it's the same
twice
thing.
a year when they get older.
And people
Okay.
are notorious about not taking their cats in. And again, cats hide illness. So by the time they're showing illness, it's usually pretty advanced. So then
And
you have,
yeah, I mean, I can understand. I can see how some cats in general would be more difficult to get to the vet and be comfortable at the vet. I just see,
absolutely.
I see it being easier to train a dog to be comfortable with that than training a cat to be comfortable with that.
Not necessarily. People think cats are not trainable, but I can remember I was working with somebody when I was living down in Mexico that had a miniature Australian puppy. and they were having some problems with the puppy chasing their girls. They had two young daughters and jumping up and tearing at their clothes and so on. And so I was working with the Australian Shepherd pup to get her more tolerant of these little girls jumping and running and carrying on. And their cat insisted on participating in clicker training. So
What?
yeah, the house cat came over, and pretty soon she was sitting for a click.
Really?
Yeah, pretty cool.
Well, I know cats are one of the reasons why it's on the easier side to train dogs is because they are so food motivated. Is that the same for cats?
The big difference is punish a cat and their history.
Yeah.
They're not going to take it. They're not going to put up with it. Not going to have anything to do with that. Forget it. So cats are very trainable, but they're not open for you to be nasty or punishing them. I saw one thing. I've only seen it once, but a cat that had been trained to do an agility course, and it was totally enclosed. It wasn't out in the open where the cat could be scared and run off. It was completely enclosed. But the cat had been taught to had a little miniature doorway, just a frame with a door, and the cat was trained to open the door and walk through, and climbed up ladders and did all kinds of things that for positive reinforcement. But you try and punish them, and their history, they're gone. Not taking it. Thank you very much.
Right. And well, we have spoken before when it comes to positive training. I remember you saying, don't ever punish your dog.
Yeah, first of all, it doesn't teach them what to do, but dogs are more tolerant with us. They've been domesticated for people
Right.
say 30,000 years, and cats like 4,000 or 5. So they're still much more of a wild animal. Many cats, probably most cats, could survive if they got locked out and were never allowed back in. Whereas that's not true with dogs. That's just not true. There are very few of them that can possibly survive on their own.
So I'm still of that mind frame, kind of as you had mentioned before, where I think that cats cannot be trained. Um, eh, but again, do I use treats,
Sure,
food with
absolutely.
cats? I mean, how
Now,
do I keep the
again,
cat's attention?
they may not be as easy to find the correct treat. Dogs are
Okay.
more inclined to think with their stomachs, and cats are more inclined to be very specific with what they'll eat. They also are, if they've only been fed kibble, for example, it's so addictive that it
Yeah.
may be difficult to even get them to eat canned food, let alone take treats.
Hmm.
That stuff is really addictive. So it's important to be working with your kitty from the beginning that they're not getting kibble and that they're getting a variety of foods. I mean, I remember having a cat that loved cantaloupe, and like it's like really, and that we had a little grass, a potted plant with grass that she liked to nibble on. So yes, they're different. They're not like a dog in a slightly different package. They're a very specific critter, and
Yeah.
that has to be allowed for. But yes, they can be trained, and they shouldn't be getting kibble ever. But when you're dealing with canned food, which is a good way to start, it's change the, the recipe, change the different cans so that it's a variety, that she's not getting just, she likes turkey. Okay, we'll stick with turkey. Wrong. Not going to do that.
That's a good point. I see a lot of cat owners doing that. My cat will only eat this version of
Right.
this canned food.
Right.
We don't
Yeah.
want to do that.
I think that it's important to prevent that because things go bump in the night. I've never, my vet friend Kitty said that she ran into that problem with one of her cats. There was a food that was the only thing her cat would eat until that company went out of business. And then, whoops, we had a big problem.
Oh, right. Yeah.
So it's important to get them going to variety right from the beginning. Yeah.
And besides this one cat that joined in your training, the dog getting off the little girls, have you had much experience training cats?
Not very much, no. Um, I have certainly offered advice, for example, with introducing a cat to the household, to another cat, to a dog in the household. I've been able to assist people in that way, but I haven't found anybody that wants to train their dogs. It's more their kittens, their cats. It's more management. Oh, she's
Yeah.
she's you're clawing the arms of the sofa. Well, there's a way to manage that, and we think in terms of that training can go along with it, but management is where you're probably going to have to start.
With the cats, yeah, that
Yeah.
makes sense.
And actually, management is important with the dogs as well. It's like
Totally.
my favorite story is this person calls and says her German Shepherd keeps chasing cars, and what can she do about it? And I said, put him on a leash.
Sometimes it's not a difficult answer.
Right. And the dog keeps jumping up and getting food off the counter. Don't put any food on the counter.
And that is management, yes?
That's management. Now, of course, you can train your dog, but keep in mind, whenever a dog or a cat has succeeded with a given behavior, it has been reinforced. So they're going to regularly and consistently investigate to see if it's still possible it could happen. So if you just slip up once and you forget, they are incredibly well reinforced to keep trying again.
Oh my gosh, Charlotte, having a pet is just so much work.
Yes, and if you really enjoy having a pet, it's worth every minute.
That's what
they
I was
give you in
looking for.
exchange,
It's
you can't
worth
get
it.
anyplace else. You can't buy it, you can't borrow it, you can't lend it, you can just get it from there.
And as we always mention, it makes the quality of life so much better for you and your pet, dog or
Absolutely.
cat or hamster or horse.
Absolutely.
Management, training,
And
and compassion.
yeah, no, for anybody that has ever had a strong relationship with a family pet, a dog, a cat, uh, there's no way to express what you feel. And when they're sick or when they die, you've lost a family member. There's just,
Totally.
no question about it.
So yeah, that's one of the reasons why I really, really would like a dog, but I know all of the work that it takes to put into it. And in my life right now, I do not have the ability to do such. So for the wellness of me and my potential dog, I'm not taking a dog right now. And then the other thing is too, as I told you, I often like to watch dog videos online, like cute dogs doing this and doing that. And oftentimes I have to stop myself because I get really, really jealous because
uh,
I want to experience that loving relationship between companion animal and human. But like I said, I'm a smart person. I can't do that yet. But oh man,
well,
you're right. It's
when
just
when
amazing.
you have a job where you can take your dog to work, then you can get that to work out. You manage to take on a puppy or a rehome dog on vacation time, and get on a schedule and a routine, and set up a couple of days of vacation part-time work that you could take the dog in and establish a routine at work, and you got it nailed.
I've thought about it. One of these days, one of these days. But
When you got to be ready, you've got to
when
be ready.
when I do decide that, boy, am I sure going to be ready to train and to feed and to care for my dog because of all the stuff that I've learned from you, Charlotte.
That's true. That's true. You're going to be
Including
big step ahead.
I will be, and I'm hoping our listeners are as well. Speaking of which, let's do some review of the things that we talked about today. We started we had easier for me to say. We started talking about dilated cardiomyopathy. This is a disease in cats and dogs that has become a problem. We're still not really sure what causes it, but what it is it's the heart's. The heart loses the ability to pump blood, so that obviously can cause some problems. So be on the lookout for things that are changing in your dog, like a sudden change of behavior or whatever. But get them to the vet if you see those behaviors. If you see something weird with your dog or your cat, take them to the vet, as you should be taking them to the vet once a year for annual checkups, and twice a year if they're an older dog or cat. Then from Dr. Zazie Todd, why dogs with behavior issues still need compassion? Well, because they have issues and we want to relieve them. Again, as we've spoken many times before, a lot of these behavior issues come from fear or aggression. They come from fear, which can result in aggression. You want to be aware of your dog's triggers. You want to be aware of what stresses out your dog. You want to get to the root of the problem. You don't want to just react to the problem. Beware of conflicting advice and have thick skin. I thought that was really good by her. And then again from Zazie Todd, training your dog just for fun? Yes. We have eight reasons why. Because it's fun, because it helps your relationship, because it helps them cognitively, all sorts of things that are really beneficial. So training is not just for making sure your dog knows what to do. It can be for fun.
There
So
you go.
keep it fun. And then lastly, from Dr. Megan Keller, can cats eat dog food? I'll put it simple. No. And
Cut to the chase. Cut to the
let's
chase.
exactly. Let's go a little bit further. Should dogs be eating dry dog food?
No.
No. Okay. That made that one real simple. All right, Charlotte. Thank you for all this information as usual. Before we head out, do you have any last words for us?
There are three faithful friends: an old wife, an old dog, and ready money. Benjamin Franklin, founding father of the United States. I think we find people that might question that, but that's what he said.
To get your questions to us, just email livingwithyourdog@gmail.com. That's livingwithyourdog@gmail.com. And also, you can find Living With Your Dog on Facebook.
Oftentimes don't have the clicker handy and something wonderful happens. So I would say yes. So we want to charge it. We call it charging it, like charging a battery. So I'd say yes and give a treat, 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 yes and give a treat. So that the dog associates yes or the clicker with food. Isn't that cool?